Dr. Orlov tossed another piece of twisted metal onto the lab bench, where it landed with a dull clang among the scattered debris. Look at this mess. Their gear's more advanced than anything we've seen before. The craftsmanship is incredible. Not a single weld mark or seam visible. Zalthar picked up a scorched circuit board, his 4 eyes narrowing as he turned it in his long fingers. The faint light from the lab's overhead panels reflected off his scales. This shouldn't exist. The metallurgy alone is... He trailed off, mandibles clicking nervously against each other in a rapid staccato. What's wrong? Orlov leaned closer, her optical implants automatically scanning the component with soft blue pulses of light. These are experimental alloys, top secret stuff, developed in our most secure facilities deep beneath the capital city. He pointed to a tiny symbol etched in the corner, his hand trembling slightly. That's High Counselor Vasharath's personal seal. I'd know it anywhere. I've seen it on classified documents before. He keeps it under armed guard at all times. Orlov's fingers flew across her terminal, the keys clicking rapidly like rain on metal. Running it through Earth's main computer hub now. Let's see what secrets you're hiding, you sneaky little device. Bet you didn't expect to end up in my lab, did you? The holographic display lit up with streams of code, bathing them both in an eerie blue glow that cast long shadows on the lab walls. Zalthar's eyes widened, all 4 of them blinking in disbelief. Impossible. You're processing Dominion encryption that fast? Our best systems take days to crack these codes, even with full power. Earth's been busy. Orlov grinned, not taking her eyes off the display as data cascaded down. While you folks were perfecting those fancy alloys, we took a different path. Pure processing power. Amazing what you can do with a whole planet as your computer. The bombardment gave us some unexpected gifts. Admiral Reyes's voice crackled over the comm, tight with concern. Talk to me, people. What are we dealing with? Bad news, Admiral, Orlov replied, her smile fading as she studied the decoded information. This gear's straight from the top, and there's more. These infiltrators were just testing our defenses. Like poking a bear to see how it reacts, they wanted to measure our response time. How can you be sure? Zalthar pointed to a decoded section, his scales taking on a paler hue that made him look almost sickly. Because Vasharath never commits resources without a bigger plan, he's too careful for that. And this message... He swallowed hard. It confirms Phase 1 was successful. They got exactly what they came for. Which means Phase 2 is coming. Orlov finished, her voice grim as she pushed back from the terminal. And it'll make this attack look like a warm-up. We better get ready for one hell of a fight. They won't underestimate us twice. As the weight of the revelation settled over them, Zalthar and Dr. Orlov knew they had no time to waste. If Vasharath had planned this attack as only the first move, the next would be devastating. Orlov pressed a quick command into her console, sending a direct priority transmission to Admiral Reyes. Moments later, the emergency alarm blared across the underground city, an urgent summons to the War Council. Admiral Reyes stood before the holographic war table, her radiation scars glowing faintly. We can't wait. Vasharath is mobilizing near the outer colonies. Commander Kulkarni stepped forward. My teams are ready. We can hit their core worlds in 6 hours. No, Reyes said firmly. We're not starting a war that will tear the galaxy apart. General Santos slammed the table. They bombed Earth. We should make them suffer. Dr. Orlov adjusted her optical implants. Brute force isn't the answer. We didn't survive just to become what we hate. Zalthar pulled up a star chart. Outpost K379 holds classified Dominion records, proof of Earth's bombardment. If exposed, it could collapse the Dominion from within. Reyes leaned in. Can we access it? Zalthar nodded. My clearance still works, but their security is tight. One mistake, and the facility locks down. Kulkarni studied the schematics. A small team can get in and out undetected. No casualties. Like ghosts. Reyes turned to him. Assemble your best. Dr. Orlov, provide stealth tech. Zalthar, brief them on every detail. Santos scoffed. You trust him? His people tried to wipe us out. Reyes met Zalthar's gaze. He's risking everything to help us. We expose the truth without starting another genocide. We are not them. Santos clenched his fists. They deserve justice. Reyes cut him off. Not revenge. We have to be better than that. Dismissed. With the plan set and the mission team assembled, Kulkarni wasted no time preparing for launch. A cloaked transport awaited them in the hidden hangar beneath Earth's ruined surface, its retrofitted systems running silent. As they boarded, the last transmission from Reyes came through. Get in, get the proof, and get out clean. The entire war depends on this. Then, with a final systems check, the engines whispered to life, and the infiltration team slipped into the void. The stealth shuttle cut silently through the data world's thick atmosphere, its hull gleaming with the reflected light of 3 moons. Commander Kulkarni stood at the viewport, watching the massive orbital defense platforms drift by like sleeping giants. Their gun barrels, each longer than his shuttle, pointed eternally outward into space, ready to obliterate any unauthorized visitors. Those cannons could tear us apart in seconds, Zalthar whispered, his frilled ears twitching nervously. If they detect us, well, there wouldn't even be pieces big enough to identify. I've seen test footage. It's not pretty. They won't, Kulkarni assured him, patting the control panel. Your codes are solid, and Dr. Orlov's cloaking tech hasn't failed us yet. Not even once in 50 missions. We're practically ghosts up here. The comm system crackled. Speaking of which, Dr. Orlov's voice came through, tired but focused. Your suits are reading normal. The acid-resistant coating should hold up against those storms. I triple-checked the formulation myself. Had to test it against the nastiest stuff we could brew up in the lab. Below them, lightning flashed through sickly yellow clouds. The landscape that emerged was dotted with towering structures, data vaults that stretched kilometers into the sky. Their metallic surfaces were scarred by constant acid rain, creating eerie patterns that reminded Kulkarni of tear tracks. Here and there, maintenance drones scuttled across the buildings like metal insects, their red warning lights blinking in the gloom. Team, gear check, Kulkarni called out. The 5-person squad responded in sequence, each specialist confirming their readiness. Maya with her hacking gear, Raj with demolitions, Torres on medical, and Singh handling communications. Each of them had trained together for months for this moment, running drills until they could do them in their sleep. Zalthar watched them with obvious amazement. You work together like a single organism, he said. In the Dominion, specialists barely acknowledge each other's existence. They're too busy competing for status and funding. Half the time they sabotage each other's projects. That's why we survived, Kulkarni replied simply. We either stood together or died alone. The bombardment taught us that real quick. Nothing builds teamwork like the end of the world. The shuttle's landing gear extended as they approached a maintenance platform, jutting from one of the smaller vaults. Zalthar's claws clicked nervously against the deck plating as he input the clearance codes. His hands shook slightly, but his inputs were perfect, each digit entered with practiced care. Access granted, the automated system chirped in Khazari. Welcome, Maintenance Team Delta 7. Please proceed to your designated service area. Local weather advisory. Severe acid storm approaching. As they touched down, a massive acid storm rolled in. Lightning illuminated the clouds in supernatural purples and greens, turning the sky into an alien light show. The squad sealed their helmets, sleek designs that bore little resemblance to their crude pre-bombardment ancestors. The material seemed to drink in light rather than reflect it, making them look like moving shadows. The suits are reading green, Orlov confirmed over comms. Environmental systems nominal. Air recyclers at full capacity. You've got about 6 hours before you need to swap filters. Zalthar stared at the exit ramp, his violet eyes reflecting the storm's lightning. Once we do this, there's no going back, he said quietly. I'll be marked as a traitor to everything I've known. My family name will be erased from every record. 300 years of academic history. Gone. Maya placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. You're choosing truth over comfortable lies. That takes real courage. Besides, you're family now, whether you like it or not. We even got you an Earth-style birthday card ready. The Khazari xenoarchaeologist straightened his spine. The truth is worth any price, he said, but his voice trembled slightly. His frilled ears pressed flat against his head, a clear sign of anxiety in his species. Kulkarni took point as they exited the shuttle. The acid rain hissed against their protective suits, creating a constant background static that reminded him of old radio interference. The massive data vault loomed above them like a monument to secrets, its surface occasionally lit by lightning strikes. Wind howled around them, carrying stinging droplets that left tiny pockmarks in the metal walkway. Remember, Kulkarni said as they approached the entrance, we're maintenance workers investigating a routine anomaly. Act bored, act tired, act like you'd rather be anywhere else. Think Monday morning paperwork and cold coffee. That won't be difficult, Torres muttered, making the team chuckle quietly. I hate acid rain. Gets everywhere, even with the suits. Found some in my boots last mission. Ate right through the insoles. The door's security scanner hummed as it read their forged credentials. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then the massive portal slid open with a soft hiss, releasing a burst of climate-controlled air that smelled faintly of ozone. We're in, Kulkarni reported back to base. Beginning Phase 1, keep the engine warm, and maybe have some coffee ready for when we get back. Good hunting, Orloff replied. I'll monitor your suit's readings from here. Stay safe. And Kulkarni? Try not to blow anything up this time. The last repair bill made accounting very unhappy. As they entered the vault, Zalthar looked back one final time at the acid storm raging outside. He was crossing a line that would forever divide his life into before and after. But as he watched the human team move with practiced precision, checking corners and maintaining perfect spacing, he knew he'd made the right choice. The truth was waiting somewhere in this vault, and together, they would find it. No matter what monsters lurked in the data streams or what price they had to pay. Some things were worth risking everything for. The moment the shuttle's landing gear touched the rain-slicked platform, the team moved with practiced precision. They stepped into the facility's dim corridors, their stealth suits blending into the shadows. A distant rumble of thunder rolled overhead, masked only by the low hum of ancient machinery awakening. Inside the data vault, history itself lay waiting for them, buried in forgotten archives that held the truth of Earth's destruction. The acid rain drummed against the vault's outer shell as Commander Kulkarni and his team worked their way through the dimly lit corridors. Their footsteps, muffled by advanced stealth tech, made no sound on the polished floor. The air smelled stale and metallic, untouched by living beings for decades. Dust particles danced in their helmet lights, swirling like tiny stars. Another security gate ahead, whispered one of the squad members, her hands flying over a portable decoder. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she worked to crack the ancient system. The old lock fought back, sending sparks of red light across her visor. Zalthar's frilled ears twitched nervously as he studied the ancient symbols on the wall. His tail swished back and forth with growing agitation, brushing against the cold metal floor. These markings, they're from the Nixari civilization. I thought they'd simply died out naturally. They didn't, did they? Kulkarni asked quietly, his hand resting on his weapon. The grip was worn smooth from years of use. No. Zalthar's violet eyes dimmed. His scales seemed to lose their shine in the low light. The Dominion, my people, we erased them, just like they tried with Earth. His voice cracked on the last word. The security gate slid open with a soft hiss, releasing a puff of stale air. Inside, towers of data crystals stretched toward the ceiling, each containing thousands of years of hidden history. The crystals glowed with a soft blue light, casting eerie shadows across the room. Some were cracked, their light flickering like dying stars. "Over here," called another squad member, his hands dancing across a holographic interface that flickered and sparked. "I'm finding references to multiple species, the Nexari, the Vrel, the Tarchans, all listed as contained threats. There are dozens more I've never even heard of." His voice trembled with each new discovery. Kulkarni's jaw tightened. His eyes burned with barely controlled anger. Small muscles jumped in his cheeks. "Download everything. The galaxy needs to know." "Commander," one of the soldiers spoke up, checking his demo charges. "We could plant charges. Make sure they can't hide this evidence anymore. Blow this whole place to hell." His fingers drummed against the explosives, eager for revenge. "No," Kulkarni replied firmly, shaking his head. "We stick to the mission. Clean in, clean out. We're not like them." He placed a steadying hand on the soldier's shoulder. Zalthar suddenly froze at another console, his scales paling to an ashen gray. His claws clicked nervously against the metal surface. "By the ancient stars, I found it. The original extinction order for Earth." His voice shook as he read. "Human adaptability exceeds predicted models. Their chaotic nature and unprecedented rate of evolution present an unacceptable risk to Dominion stability." It's signed by Vasharath himself. The date stamp shows he planned this for years. "They feared us," Kulkarni said softly, looking at the damning evidence. His reflection in the screen stared back at him, grim and determined. "Wait," Zalthar's fingers flew across the interface, sending sparks of light dancing through the air. "There's more. The final command log. Vashrath specifically ordered the bombardment despite objections from the Science Council. He wrote, 'Better to eliminate this threat now than allow it to grow beyond our control.' He killed billions based on fear alone." The xenoarchaeologist's frills drooped in shame. Just then a low-pitched tone began to echo through the vault. Red lights pulsed along the walls, casting crimson shadows that made the team look like they were standing in blood. The temperature seemed to drop several degrees. "Automated security alert," Zalthar hissed, his frills extending in alarm. "We've triggered something. The old systems are waking up." Ancient machinery groaned to life in distant chambers. "Do we have what we need?" Kulkarni demanded, already moving toward the exit. His boots left prints in the dust that had settled over decades. "Yes, it's all here. The complete records, the command logs, everything. Enough to bring down the whole corrupt system." Zalthar clutched the data drive like it was made of gold. "Then we move. Now." Kulkarni activated his comm. "All units, fall back to extraction point. Double time." As they sprinted through the corridors, distant alarms began to wail. The sound echoed off the metal walls like screaming ghosts. Ancient defense turrets emerged from hidden panels, their targeting systems struggling to wake after years of disuse. The truth about Earth's bombing and countless other atrocities was finally in their hands. Now they just had to escape with it, before the Dominion's guards arrived to bury the truth once again. With the evidence secured, they had only minutes before the automated defenses locked down the facility. The alarm's wailing tones chased them through the corridors, red lights flashing with every passing second. Their extraction point was still too far, until Zalthar spotted an old maintenance tunnel. "This way," he urged, his voice sharp with urgency. "If we hurry, we can still make it out alive." Red warning lights flashed and pulsed as Kulkarni led his team through the winding corridors of the Dominion facility. The harsh strobes painted everything in an eerie crimson glow. Behind them, the high-pitched whine of security drones grew steadily louder, echoing off the metal walls like angry hornets. "Left here," Zalthar called out, his frilled ears pressed flat against his head in obvious distress, scales darkening with fear. "The maintenance tunnels will lead us back to the landing pad. I'm certain of it." They rounded the corner just as bright blue energy bolts sizzled past them, leaving smoking scorch marks on the pristine walls. The acrid smell of burnt metal filled the air. Two squad members dropped back into practiced positions, laying down heavy covering fire with their rifles, the weapon's deep thrum drowning out the drone whine. "Martinez, deploy the decoys now," Kulkarni ordered, his voice sharp with urgency. Martinez yanked small silver devices from his pack, tossing them down adjoining corridors with practiced ease. The devices hummed to life, projecting running holograms of the team, complete with heat signatures that would fool most sensors. The false images scattered in different directions, each one a perfect copy. "Brilliant human tech," Zalthar muttered as they sprinted forward, his breathing heavy and ragged. "The drones will split their pursuit. I've never seen anything like it. Your species continues to amaze me." They reached a sealed blast door, its control panel glowing an angry red. While the team's tech expert worked frantically on the controls, muttering curses under her breath, Sergeant Wong moved with quick efficiency, planting timed explosives along their back trail. Her hands never hesitated as she set each charge. "More patrols converging," warned Cooper, her eyes glued to her tactical display, face bathed in its blue glow. 3 minutes until they reach our position. Maybe less. They're moving fast. The blast door finally opened with a hydraulic hiss, but as they rushed through, a sleek combat drone burst from a ventilation shaft above them, its metal body gleaming in the emergency lights. Its energy blast caught Rodriguez in the shoulder, the impact spinning him around like a top. Man down. Kulkarni and Wong grabbed Rodriguez and dragged him behind a jutting wall while the others returned fire, their weapons lighting up the corridor. The drone exploded in a spectacular shower of sparks and twisted metal, raining debris around them. "I can still move," Rodriguez grimaced, clutching his wounded shoulder as blood seeped between his fingers, staining his combat suit. "Just hurts like hell. Don't slow down for me." They pressed on through the dimly lit passages, with Zalthar guiding them through the maze-like structure, his violet eyes reflecting the emergency lights. "The Dominion builds all their facilities on similar patterns," he explained between gasping breaths, chest heaving. "These maintenance routes are meant for repair drones, but they'll lead us out. Trust me on this. I studied these layouts for years." Behind them, Wong's explosives detonated with a thunderous roar. The tunnel shook violently, dust and small debris raining from the ceiling, and distant shouts of confusion echoed through the corridors. They were almost to the landing pad when searing plasma fire raked across their path, filling the air with the smell of ozone and burnt metal. Foster took a glancing hit to his leg, stumbling forward with a cry of pain, his armor smoking where the blast had connected. "Keep going," he shouted as Cooper grabbed him, helping him stay upright, her face set with determination. Their transport came into view through the rain-streaked windows, its engines already humming to life, a welcome sight in the gloom. But between them and freedom stood a menacing squad of security robots, their weapons charging with an ominous whine, red targeting lasers cutting through the mist. "Cover me!" Kulkarni shouted. He sprinted forward, drawing their fire while the rest of the team split up, attacking from multiple angles in a well-rehearsed maneuver. Zalthar surprised everyone by grabbing a fallen drone's weapon and providing surprisingly accurate covering fire from behind a cargo container, his shots dropping 2 robots in quick succession. "I did attend basic military training," he said defensively, noting their shocked looks as he ejected a spent power cell. "Even scientists must serve in the Dominion, though I never thought I'd use these skills against my own people. Funny how life works out." They fought their way to the transport, helping the wounded aboard first. The caustic acid rain hammered against their protective suits with a constant patter as more security forces emerged from the facility's main entrance, their armor glinting in the facility's searchlights. "Everyone in," Kulkarni ordered, laying down one final burst of suppressing fire. The transport's engines roared to full power as they lifted off, the deck plates vibrating beneath their feet, just as the first Dominion fighters appeared on the horizon, their sleek forms cutting through the clouds like predatory birds. "Multiple pursuit craft detected," the pilot announced, hands flying over the controls, face lit by dozens of warning indicators. "They're scrambling everything they've got. This is going to get rough. Hold on to something. Through the viewport, Zalthar watched his homeworld fall away, the reality sinking in that he could never return. The data they'd stolen would change everything, if they could escape with it. His frills drooped with a mixture of sadness and resolve. "This is High Command to all units," a voice crackled over the intercepted Dominion channels, filled with barely contained rage. "Unknown intruders have breached Vault 7, suspected human involvement. Shoot down that transport at all costs. They must not escape with our secrets. Failure is not an option. Kill them all if you have to, but recover that data." As the transport's engines roared, plasma fire rained down from above. Enemy fighters descended from orbit, their weapons locked onto the fleeing ship. Jensen pulled them into a steep dive, barely skimming the toxic clouds. "They're not letting us go without a fight," she yelled over comms. On board, Zalthar clutched the stolen data crystal, his pulse hammering in his throat. They had what they came for, but only if they could live long enough to deliver it. "Martinez, the decoys," Kulkarni ordered. Martinez yanked 3 metallic spheres from his vest and tossed them down the dimly lit corridor. The devices hit the floor with sharp clinks before activating, projecting multiple heat signatures that scattered in different directions. The pursuing drone's targeting systems went haywire, their red scanning beams darting wildly between the false signals. Sparks flew as the confused machines fired randomly, hitting walls and ceiling panels. The team sprinted through maintenance tunnels, their boots clanging against metal grating. Sweat dripped down their faces as they pushed forward, gasping for breath in the stale air. The recycled atmosphere burned their lungs, tasting of metal and old dust. Zalthar's knowledge of Khazari architecture proved invaluable as he guided them through the maze-like passages, calling out turns seconds before they needed to make them. "Left here! Watch the low pipe," he shouted, ducking under a steam vent. They burst onto the landing pad just as their transport's engines roared to life, kicking up dust and debris. "Everyone in!" Kulkarni shouted, dropping to one knee and providing cover fire as his team scrambled aboard. The whine of enemy weapons fire filled the air around them. Plasma bolts sizzled past, leaving glowing trails in the artificial atmosphere. The ship lifted off, but 3 Dominion vessels appeared on their tail, their sleek hulls gleaming in the artificial light. Their pilot, Jensen, didn't hesitate. She rolled the transport into a series of wild spins, diving between towering data stacks that stretched toward the artificial sky. Warning lights flashed across her console, and alarms blared through the cabin. "Come on, baby, hold together," she muttered through gritted teeth. "They're charging weapons," someone yelled from the back of the cabin. The ship shuddered as a near miss clipped their shields. "Hold on!" Jensen banked hard right, then cut the engines. The sudden drop made their pursuers overshoot, their larger ships unable to match the transport's agility. She fired up the engines again, shooting through a narrow gap between buildings with barely inches to spare on either side. Metal screeched as their wingtips scraped the walls. Back on Earth, Admiral Reyes and Dr. Orloff watched their approach on the command center's main screen, tension visible in their rigid postures. Reyes drummed her fingers against the console, while Orloff chewed her lower lip. Multiple Dominion warships entering the sector, an officer reported, his voice tight with worry. The tactical display lit up with red dots like angry fireflies. When the transport finally landed with a heavy thud, Reyes met them at the hangar. Her face was grim despite their successful return, deep lines of concern etched around her eyes. The landing bay echoed with the whine of cooling engines and the hiss of decompressing hydraulics. "The data you recovered confirms our worst fears," she said. "But it's also triggered an immediate response from the Dominion. Vashrath has declared war." Dr. Orloff stepped forward, her optical implants glowing as they scanned through the recovered files, streams of data reflecting off her pale face. Her fingers danced through holographic displays only she could see. "The logs are damning. Vashrath personally ordered Earth's destruction because they feared our ability to adapt and evolve. And there's more. Plans for a second strike if we ever showed signs of survival. They've been watching us this whole time like vultures waiting for a corpse to twitch. The Dominion Council is mobilizing, Reyes added, gesturing at the tactical displays surrounding them. Red warning indicators blinked faster with each passing second. Our long-range sensors show their entire fleet moving toward our sector. Vasharath knows we have proof of his crimes. He's coming to finish what he started. Zalthar's scales paled to an ashen gray, his frills drooping with dread. He will stop at nothing to destroy that evidence, and us with it. I know him too well. His pride won't allow any other outcome. Multiple ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel, an officer called out, his voice cracking. The main screen filled with flashes of light as ships tore holes in space itself. They're forming a blockade pattern, at least 30 vessels and counting. Reyes turned to face the tactical display, her radiation scars glowing faintly in the dim light like a testament to humanity's survival. Her jaw clenched as she watched the enemy fleet grow. So it begins. Vasharath would rather start a galactic war than face the truth of what he's done. Typical bully, can't handle being caught. She shook her head with disgust. The command center erupted with activity as reports flooded in from every direction. Screens lit up with new contacts as the Dominion fleet grew larger by the minute, their ships taking up attack positions around Earth's defensive perimeter, like wolves circling their prey. Officers rushed between stations, shouting updates and damage assessments. Dr. Orloff, Reyes said, her voice steady despite the chaos. Get that data analyzed. Find anything we can use. Commander Kulkarni, get your team ready. This isn't over. She looked at Zalthar, her gaze piercing. Your people are coming for us. Whose side will you be on when they arrive? Zalthar straightened his posture, meeting her gaze without flinching. His frilled ears flared with determination, the motion rippling down his scales. I chose truth over loyalty to the Dominion when I helped recover these files. I won't abandon that choice now. My conscience won't allow it. His clawed hand gripped the data crystal tighter. Besides, I've seen what humans can do when backed into a corner. I'd rather be on your side when the fighting starts. After a harrowing escape through the Dominion blockade, the battered transport finally reached Earth's secret outpost. As the hangar doors sealed behind them, the team stumbled out, exhausted, wounded, but victorious. Zalthar handed the data drive to Dr. Orloff, who immediately began decrypting its contents. Across the command center, Admiral Reyes stood waiting, her expression unreadable. Tell me, she said, voice tight with anticipation. Did we get enough to bring the Dominion to its knees? In the war room deep beneath Earth's surface, Admiral Reyes stood before a holographic display of Dominion military installations. The blue light cast shadows across her radiation-scarred arms as she studied the tactical overlay. Her fingers traced the paths between enemy strongholds, each movement deliberate and thoughtful. The room hummed with the soft whir of cooling systems and the quiet murmur of technicians at their stations. We have the codes. We have the tech. But wholesale slaughter isn't the answer, Reyes said, her voice firm as steel but warm with conviction. We're better than that. We have to be. The moment we sink to their level is the moment we lose what makes us human. Dr. Orloff nodded, her optical implants scanning the data streams, casting tiny reflections on the wall like dancing fireflies. The network has already infiltrated their defense systems. We could shut down their automated weapons across 17 star systems. Even their backup protocols are compromised. It's almost funny how they never saw this coming. Some of the generals want blood, Commander Kulkarni admitted, his face grim, hands clenched at his sides. The muscles in his jaw worked as he spoke. After what they did to Earth, many think we should hit them with everything we have. Make them feel what we felt. The bombardment took everything from us. Zalthar stepped forward, his frilled ears twitching with emotion, scales catching the blue glow like ripples on water. If you wanted revenge, you could have it. But choosing mercy, that would shatter everything the Dominion believes about humans. He gestured to the holomap, his long fingers spreading wide. They see you as savages. Prove them wrong. Show them what humanity truly stands for. Your restraint would echo through generations. Exactly, Reyes said, a slight smile crossing her face. Her dark eyes sparkled with determination. We'll target their military nodes, disable their ability to wage war, but we spare civilian centers. She zoomed in on key strategic points, the holomap shifting and flowing around her hands like liquid light. Orlov, walk us through it. We've cracked their defense algorithms, Orlov explained, bringing up streams of code that filled the air like digital rain. Her fingers danced through the holographic displays, reorganizing data with practiced ease. Their automated turrets, shield generators, and weapon systems all run on the same basic programming. We can seize control, lock them out of their own defenses. They won't know what hit them until it's too late. Like taking candy from a baby, if the baby was an advanced alien civilization. A perfect strike, Kulkarni mused, stroking his chin. His expression softened slightly. Cripple their ability to fight without massive casualties. Force them to negotiate. I like it. Clean and effective. Some will call this weakness, one of the council members argued, standing up from his chair with enough force to make it scrape against the floor. They bombed our world. Why show them mercy? They deserve everything they gave us and more. Make them pay. Reyes turned to face the council, her expression stern but understanding. The scars on her arms seemed to glow brighter in the holographic light. Because if we give in to vengeance, we prove Vasharath right. We prove humans are exactly what he claimed, dangerous savages who need to be eliminated. She pointed to the evidence they'd recovered, displayed in harsh red warning signs. Look at how many species they've destroyed. We end that cycle here, today. Someone has to be the adult in the room. The Dominion's power stems from fear, Zalthar added, his voice soft but carrying clearly through the room. His violet eyes reflected both worry and hope. But showing restraint when you hold overwhelming power? That will resonate across the galaxy. Other species will see humans chose justice over revenge. It will change everything. The ripples will be felt for centuries. Orlov pulled up the final attack plan, her implants glowing as she interfaced with the system. The light cast strange patterns across her pale face. We can execute this in stages. First, we seize their defense networks. Then we systematically disable their ability to project military power, all while keeping civilian casualties to an absolute minimum. It's elegant, really, like performing surgery with a sledgehammer, but somehow making it work. Reyes studied the faces around her. She saw the pain, the anger, the desire for vengeance in every human expression. But she also saw hope. Hope for a future beyond endless cycles of violence. Hope for something better. The weight of Earth's past and humanity's future pressed down on her shoulders. We strike their military capability, she declared, her voice ringing with authority through the underground chamber. We show them we could destroy them, but choose not to. Then we bring them to the table, not as conquerors but as equals. She straightened her shoulders, standing tall. That's how humanity takes its place in the galaxy, not through destruction but through wisdom, and maybe, just maybe, we'll teach them something about being human. As Reyes studied the decoded files, her expression darkened with every line. The room around her was silent, officers, soldiers, and diplomats all waiting for her verdict. She straightened and turned to the fleet commanders, her voice unwavering. We're done hiding, she declared. Prepare for launch. Every ship, every operative. The Dominion thinks we're weak. Let's show them what Earth can do. Zalthar watched in awe as thousands of human ships lifted silently from their hidden hangars across Earth's cratered surface. Their cloaking technology made them nearly invisible, just subtle distortions against the stars like heat waves on a summer day. The sheer scale of the operation left him breathless. In the main launch bay, families gathered for final goodbyes. A young girl hugged her mother's legs while her father adjusted his combat suit. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Come back safe, Daddy, she whispered. He knelt down and wrapped her in a tight hug, his own eyes glistening. Admiral Reyes stood on the command platform, her radiation scars glowing faintly in the dim light as her voice carried across the assembled crews. For generations, we lived in fear beneath the surface of our broken world. But we did more than survive. We grew stronger. We turned our scars into shields, our pain into power. She paused, looking at the faces before her, seeing the same fierce determination in every eye. Today we fight not for revenge, but for a future where no species faces extinction for being different, where children can grow up under open skies without fear. Dr. Orlov's fingers danced across her console as she coordinated with the fleet's systems, her optical implants flickering with streams of data. All ships showing green on stealth systems. The network is ready. Every vessel is linked and synchronized. Commander Kulkarni reviewed the tactical assignments with his squadron leaders, his voice steady and confident. Alpha Team will hit their primary communications hub in the Centauri sector. Beta takes out the shipyards at Proxima. Gamma disrupts their supply lines through the Arcturus corridor. Remember your training. Quick and clean. Are you certain your forces are sufficient? Zalthar asked, his frilled ears twitching with concern as he studied the tactical displays. The Dominion fleet is vast. I've seen their numbers firsthand. We don't need to match their numbers, Reyes replied with quiet confidence, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. We just need to show them we can strike anywhere, at any time. That we choose restraint, not because we're weak, but because we're strong. Sometimes the smallest force, applied precisely, can move mountains. The massive hangar doors opened to the star-filled sky, their ancient mechanisms humming with power. One by one, the ships rose in perfect formation, each squadron peeling off toward their designated targets. Parents waved goodbye to children, partners embraced one last time, and crews boarded their vessels with determined faces. Some laughed, some cried, but all moved with purpose. Zalthar watched in amazement. Despite their fear, despite knowing the overwhelming odds, these humans moved with absolute unity of purpose. They weren't seeking vengeance. They were fighting to end cycles of violence that had claimed countless species. Their restraint and resolve shook him to his core. As the last ships disappeared into the darkness, Admiral Reyes turned to her bridge crew. Her eyes blazed with determination as she gave the order that would change the course of history. All squadrons commenced silent running. Operation New Dawn is go. Let's make this count. In the vast reaches of space, human warships shimmered into existence, emerging from hidden strongholds. Silent and unseen, they moved like ghosts between the stars. At the head of the vanguard, Kulkarni's task force slipped through Dominion space lanes undetected. The stolen codes worked flawlessly, so far. But deep inside the enemy's naval stronghold, one wrong move could turn their covert mission into a bloodbath. Dr. Orlov's voice crackled through Commander Kulkarni's neural link. Systems are primed, ready when you are. Her tone carried the familiar mix of excitement and focus that came with pushing Earth's computing systems to their limits. 3 human corvettes glided through the darkness of space, their hulls absorbing sensor waves like black holes. They approached the massive Dominion military base, a sprawling structure of crystalline towers and weapon platforms that orbited a frozen moon. Ice crystals sparkled in the dim starlight, making the base look almost beautiful despite its deadly purpose. Security protocols identified, Orlov reported from Earth, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces in her underground lab. Beginning override. Now. Commander Kulkarni watched his tactical display as thousands of red dots representing Dominion defense drones suddenly flickered to green. The base's automated turrets swiveled silently, training their barrels on the Dominion's own ships. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite his suit's cooling systems. They haven't noticed yet, whispered one of Kulkarni's team members, barely containing their nervous excitement. A burst of panicked Dominion communications lit up their monitors, alien languages mixing with frantic computer code. Orlov's voice came through again. Communications successfully scrambled. They're blind and deaf now. And probably having the worst day of their lives, she added with a hint of satisfaction. The infiltration team's shuttle slipped through a maintenance airlock. Inside, they found chaos. Dominion soldiers ran in confusion as their own security systems locked them out of control rooms and sealed blast doors. Some tried shooting control panels in desperation, which only made things worse. "Remember," Kulkarni told his team, "minimal casualties. We're here to control, not destroy." He watched his people move with practiced efficiency, stunning rather than killing when confrontation was unavoidable. They moved swiftly through the corridors, using stolen access codes to reach the central command hub. Outside, the base's defense grid had come fully under human control. Dominion ships found themselves trapped in tractor beams or herded away by their own automated escorts, like sheep being corralled by mechanical shepherds. In the detention block, they found prisoners from a dozen different species, some looking barely alive after their ordeal. A tall crystalline being stepped forward as Kulkarni's team disabled the force fields, its faceted body catching the emergency lights. "The Dominion said humans were extinct," the creature said in amazement, voice resonating like wind chimes. "They said no one could challenge their power." "Well," Kulkarni smiled as he helped others to their feet, "they were wrong about both." He offered his water canteen to a particularly weak-looking prisoner. Through the windows they watched as the last Dominion ships surrendered, surrounded by their own defense platforms. Not a single shot had been fired. Not one life had been lost. The operation had gone even better than their simulations predicted. "Base is secure," Orlov confirmed through the comms, exhaustion creeping into her voice after hours of intense concentration. "The Dominion never imagined we could hack their encrypted systems. Their arrogance was their weakness." The freed prisoners gathered around the humans, eyes wide with hope and admiration. A reptilian elder bowed deeply, scales shimmering in the artificial light. "You could have destroyed this place, killed everyone. Instead, you showed mercy. We will not forget this." Others nodded in agreement, some weeping with relief, others standing straighter with renewed dignity. With their operation a resounding success, Kulkarni's fleet vanished as quickly as it had arrived. Meanwhile, the Dominion reeled from their losses, their command scrambling for answers. In orbit above the Khazari homeworld, Reyes's fleet moved into position. Zalthar stared at the gleaming capital below, his heart heavy with realization. "Vasharath will never surrender," he murmured, "unless we force him to see the truth." Commander Kulkarni's fleet melted away into hyperspace, leaving disabled Dominion bases in their wake. Hours later, Admiral Reyes stood on the bridge of Earth's flagship, the Defiant, as it dropped out of hyperspace above the gleaming Khazari capital world. The planet's surface sparkled with vast crystal cities and orbital rings that wrapped around it like jewelry. The sight was breathtaking, even to veterans of deep space. "Multiple dreadnoughts moving to intercept," reported the tactical officer, fingers flying across the holographic controls. "They're charging weapons. I count at least 15 capital ships." Reyes remained calm, her radiation scars glowing faintly in the starlight. Her steady presence reassured the bridge crew. "Open a channel to High Counselor Vasharath." The massive view screen flickered to life, revealing Vasharath's gilded scales and ornate crest. His violet eyes widened in shock, and his jaw went slack for a moment. "Impossible," he hissed, recovering his composure. "You primitive savages cannot be here. Our defenses are impenetrable." "But we are," Reyes replied evenly, a hint of a smile playing at her lips. "Your automated defenses across 12 star systems are under our control. Your fleet is scattered. Surrender now, and we can begin peace talks. No one else needs to die today." A Dominion dreadnought fired, its energy beam slicing through space like an angry red sword. The Defiant twisted impossibly, the shot missing by meters. Human ships danced between Dominion vessels, their movements unpredictable yet deadly effective. They moved like schools of fish, flowing around the larger ships with practiced ease. Target their weapon systems only, Reyes ordered, her voice firm but not harsh. Avoid civilian areas at all costs. We're here to end a war, not start another one. Zalthar stepped forward, his frilled ears quivering with emotion. His voice carried the weight of truth. High Counselor, I speak to all Khazari who can hear this transmission. I have seen the truth of what we did to Earth. The logs don't lie. We bombed them not because they were dangerous, but because we feared their potential. We were wrong. Silence, traitor, Vasharath spat, his scales darkening with rage until they looked almost black. Raise the planetary shields. Crush these. We tried to destroy them, Zalthar continued, speaking over his leader's rage. And yet here they stand, not seeking revenge, but justice. They could bombard our cities, as we did theirs. Instead, they offer peace. Look at what's happening. Look at the truth. The Defiant shuddered as a dreadnought's shot grazed their shields, lighting up the bridge with a flash of blue energy. On the tactical display, human ships systematically disabled Dominion weapon systems with perfectly aimed strikes, careful to avoid civilian targets. Each hit was calculated to disable, not destroy. Look at your screens, Reyes said firmly, gesturing to the battle unfolding around them. We've had control of your automated defenses for hours. We could have turned them against your own people. Instead, we simply shut them down. These are not the actions of savages, High Counselor. The choice is yours, more violence or a chance at peace. Vashrath's face contorted as reports flooded in. More bases going dark, defense systems failing, but no civilian casualties. His carefully constructed narrative of human barbarism crumbled before his eyes. The truth was becoming impossible to deny, even for him. The battle erupted in a flash of light as Dominion warships fired their first volley. Yet one by one their defenses began to fail, not from human weapons, but from within. Dr. Orloff's final infiltration command rippled through the Dominion network, disabling shields, silencing weapons, rendering their fleets useless. On every screen in the galaxy, the same message played. Earth has risen, and this time it would not fall. Reyes's radiation scars glowed faintly as she stood before the main view screen, casting subtle blue patterns across her dark skin. Her dark eyes fixed on the approaching Dominion fleet, their massive ships looking less threatening by the second. Dr. Orloff, are we ready? She asked over the comm, her finger hovering over the control panel. Yes, Admiral. Earth's network has full access to their systems. Every last bit of their tech belongs to us now. We can shut down their entire defense grid with one command. Orloff's voice held a hint of satisfaction. Reyes nodded and opened a channel to the capital. High Counselor Vasharath's scaled face appeared, his gilded cranial crest gleaming with artificial confidence. His eyes widened at the sight of a human commanding such a powerful fleet. Impossible, he sputtered, his scales rippling with rage. How dare you? Watch carefully, Reyes cut him off, her voice cool and steady. With a slight gesture, she signaled Orloff. Across the Khazari capital, defense platforms went dark one by one, like stars blinking out. Shield generators powered down with a whine. Weapon systems deactivated in waves. The mighty Dominion dreadnoughts drifted helplessly, reduced to expensive space junk. As you can see, Reyes continued, her voice carrying across all frequencies, we could destroy your civilization right now, just as you tried to destroy ours. She let that sink in for a moment. Vasharath's scales paled to a sickly shade. You're broadcasting this across the entire sector. Yes, the galaxy needs to see this moment. Reyes's voice grew stronger, filling every channel. Humanity survived your genocide attempt. We turned your weapons against us into tools of advancement. We mastered technology you thought impossible, and now we stand here with absolute power over your fate. Zalthar stepped forward into view, addressing his own people. The archives don't lie, Counselor. I've seen the proof of your crimes, not just against Earth, but countless species. The evidence is overwhelming. Traitor! Vasharath hissed, his frill extending in fury. No, Reyes interrupted, her tone sharp. He chose truth over tyranny. And now you face a choice. She paused, letting tension build in the silence. Despite everything you've done, we offer you a path forward, not as rulers but as equals. Join us in building an alliance based on respect, not fear. Share knowledge instead of hoarding it. Help uplift species instead of crushing them. Vasharath's composure cracked like thin ice. You would show mercy? After everything? Yes? Because that's what makes us human. Reyes's voice carried steel beneath its warmth, her scars pulsing brighter. But make no mistake, refuse, and we'll permanently disable every military asset in Dominion space. Your choice, partnership or powerlessness. The High Counselor slumped in his throne, his carefully crafted image of superiority shattered like glass. Billions watched across the galaxy as humanity demonstrated both unstoppable power and unprecedented mercy. The silence stretched across space itself. You have 1 hour to decide, Reyes stated, standing tall and unwavering. Choose wisely. The future of both our species hangs in the balance. In the stunned silence that followed humanity's final demonstration of power, the Dominion stood on the brink of collapse. Vasharath's voice, once so commanding, now trembled with fear and rage. You would show mercy? He asked, barely able to comprehend it. Reyes nodded, her scars a testament to everything they had endured. Because that's what makes us human. And with those words, the Dominion's long reign of fear came to an end. Reyes watched intently from the council chamber as Zalthar stepped up to the gleaming podium. His frilled ears twitched rapidly with barely contained emotion as he addressed the gathered representatives of 100 worlds. The massive chamber with its soaring crystalline dome held more species than most humans had ever seen in one place. We thought we could extinguish them, he began, his voice carrying to every corner. Instead, they transformed their wounds into wisdom. They turned destruction into hope. Dr. Orlov sat beside Commander Kulkarni, her optical implants working overtime as they scanned the faces of the alien delegates. Where there had once been fear or contempt of humans, she now saw respect, even awe. Some of the delegates leaned forward in their seats, hanging on every word. In the back of the chamber, Vasharath hunched in his seat, his once proud gilded scales dulled and flaking. His remaining loyalists had surrendered after seeing the evidence of their crimes broadcast across every communication channel in known space. He couldn't even meet the eyes of his fellow council members anymore. The humans could have destroyed us all, Zalthar continued, spreading his arms wide. They had every right to seek revenge. Instead, they chose to teach us a better way. They showed us mercy when we deserved none. On the main display, crystal-clear images showed human engineers working alongside alien species, rebuilding worlds the Dominion had devastated. Dr. Orlov's team had reprogrammed Earth's network to heal rather than harm, restoring dead ecosystems, purifying poisoned atmospheres, and bringing life back to barren worlds. The before and after images drew gasps from the audience. Commander Kulkarni stood with a group of freed prisoners and their families, his usual stern expression softened by the moment. A small child from a species long oppressed by the Dominion reached up to touch his hand in gratitude. The child's parents wiped away tears. I hereby resign my position within the former Dominion, Zalthar announced, removing his ceremonial crest. I will dedicate my life to fostering understanding between our peoples. We have much to learn from each other. Admiral Reyes stepped forward, her presence commanding instant attention. Her radiation scars glowed softly as she addressed the council. 20 years ago, we hid in irradiated craters, fighting for survival. Today we offer our hand in friendship to all species who seek peace. The future belongs to all of us. Zalthar's voice grew strong with conviction. They bombed Earth. We are still counting the pieces of our technology, our unity, our spirit. And in assembling these shards, we crafted something greater than the sum of our suffering. Together, we will build a better galaxy. The chamber erupted in thunderous applause as humans and aliens rose to their feet. Species that had never worked together before now stood side by side, ready to begin the long work of healing the galaxy's wounds. Even some of the most hardened diplomats couldn't hide their tears of joy. If you enjoyed the story of Jonathan, I hand-picked this next story that you will enjoy. Please don't miss this one. Click here to watch it.